time has run out for Iran's leaders, who are now in hiding.
So President Trump reportedly says that the situation in Iran is, quote, in flux, as the United States has sent what the president called a big armada to the region. He tells Axios that the Iranians have called him many times. They want to talk.
Martha, good afternoon. President Trump says Iran wants a deal, and tension continues to rise across the Middle East as the United States and Iran trade words over the possibility of war. The U.S. Air Force announced new drills in the region this week as new weapons continue to flow to regional countries like Jordan and Qatar. A U.S. official tells Fox News the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike group has now entered CENTCOM waters, but is not yet considered on station. With the buildup ongoing, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson responded.
Yeah.
The arrival of a certain warship is not going to shake Iran's will or determination to defend the country with full force. We have both the will and the full capability to defend Iran, backed by our people and by the experience we have built upon over the past decades.
I don't know how they're going to fight their own people and a foreign adversary at the exact same time, let alone the United States.
Therefore, the armed force of the Islamic Republic of Iran will carefully keep an eye on every movement and every development.
It's a horrible regime over there.
Tonight, U.S. officials made clear that the diplomatic window is still open to negotiate with Iran, but that window appears to be closing.
These are some of the assets.
Yeah, look at this.
So you have the carrier strike group, the Abraham Lincoln, the destroyers, the combat ships. This is not everything. This is just some of what's going on in that area right now. What does this all mean tonight?
Blake, this is a sizable, beautiful armada, and it provides the president options. Those could be offensive options. Those could be defensive options. They could be options to levy a blockade against ships in the region. We don't know, but certainly now the firepower of this armada, combined with 40,000 or so American forces that are already in the region, makes a sizable deterrent.
If you're the Iranian regime right now, if you're their leaders who were in hiding, you got to be looking at this and what happened in Venezuela, and you got to be thinking you're running out of time.
Provides options to the president.
All right, so let's go over those options. What are they as you see them?
Yes, what are they?
The options are that the president could strike preemptively in support of the protesters, or just the fact that this armada is there provides enough of a top cover to protesters that now the regime in Iran has to defend against an external threat, which means he can't use those forces against the internal protesters. And that might provide the type of options that allow protests to bubble back up in Iran.
And if the protests don't bubble back up, then what?
It's really tough for me to see that individual strikes by the United States would do something to move the needle in Iran. That is not going to topple the Ayatollah. It's not going to do anything that's going to diminish their ballistic missile fleet to a sizable level. That really, we are the supporting function here. We are there to support protesters, and only if the protesters start again the energy of the protests does strikes on internal security sites actually move the needle.
All right, so these are some of the assets.
So this expert says there may not be what are called strategic strikes, because what do those do against a heavily armed country that has a large military and has its own missiles all over the place that it could shoot up? But I happen to wonder what would happen if the very leaders who the people are fighting against were part of one of those strikes. Would that not be effective? I think that's what we're going to find out.
Now, near the Middle East, and we just showed you, and let's put it on back, what happened in Venezuela.
Yes, it's the same Venezuela playbook.
Two carrier groups, Salt Ship, and you see all the rest there. And the reason why I bring it up is because this is the language that I heard from the commander-in-chief last time, which is we have an armada. There's communications of some kind at that point with Maduro.
It's the same thing.
And when all of this was out there, Nicolas Maduro was in Caracas. And tonight he's in a Brooklyn prison.
That's right.
It leads to the question, with the president now talking about Armada again and all the assets going in.
Same thing.
How does this compare to what we had in Venezuela before the commander-in-chief made that decision?
Blake, again, the size of the naval fleet is about the same, but we also have those 40,000 additional Americans that are in planes stationed throughout the Middle East that provide a lot more options and a lot more firepower to the president now than he even had in the Caribbean a month ago.
So more than Venezuela.
Far more.
And it's because of the 40,000.
Wow.
Absolutely right.
It's worse. Better be watching out.
This is why we continue to keep our eye on it, General.
Yes.
We hear the president saying what he says. What he actually does next is one of the big decisions before the commander-in-chief tonight. John Teicher?
I think the president already knows what he's going to do next. I think he's just waiting for the right opportunity to do it. That's what we saw in Venezuela.
This regime, if they're ever going to get rid of this regime, it's going to be now.
Yeah.
They've got few allies. They've got depleted resources. We know from the 12-day war, you've got an immensely unpopular regime, which is just the Ayatollah and the IRGC and some volunteer extremist Islamists that back the regime. Pretty well the whole rest of the population against them. Trump's a transformative president. He wants to go down as the man that changed the world. We know he's got a significant ego. And the fall of the Iranian regime will change the world and will change it forever, or for at least the next 50 to 100 years. And we know the consequences of Iran falling. So people here...
Okay, I get that not everybody out there, not everybody's a fan of President Trump, but are we supposed to believe that having a different president in the White House, had the last election in America gone differently and Kamala Harris is president, are we supposed to believe that this Iranian regime would even be on its last legs? Otherwise, what they're saying is that he's willing to put Americans at risk for no reason at all, and he doesn't care about our own service members or the people in Iran who are asking him literally to help right now. And he said he's going to.
And Iran, all of the European press, the overwhelming view here in Israel is that Trump will do something. And the delay has been, for the reasons we know, getting the assets in, military assets in place. And I think also, reading between the lines, he's probably wanting to make sure that there is regime change. It's all very well to attack IRGC military bases and officers and kill their soldiers, but that doesn't guarantee regime change. So I'm sure that part of the thinking that he's been doing with allies is how do we make sure that we either kill or capture the Ayatollah or give him safe passage to Russia. But something is going to happen here, and it's days and weeks away, not months, Andrew.
And the very interesting thing here is prior to something happening in Venezuela, Trump spoke to dictator Nicolas Maduro and told him, step down, leave, protect your family. If he says the same thing to these guys who are hiding underground, as it says right here on the screen, hiding, and they don't take him up on that, they must understand that capture or something worse than fleeing and living out your days somewhere else is on the table.
That's interesting. Of course, Michael Danby, as you know, General Jack Keane, who's a confidant of President Trump, assured me on this show last week that there will be almost certainly a war.
Wow.
The US will strike. It's preparing the ground. What's at stake here?
Look, Khomeini's in hiding. His son is doing the liaison with the SS of the regime, the IRGC, the bitter enders, who will probably end up running the place if the headquarters are attacked. But I want to echo Michael's words. If Iran becomes even a benign state, even if it's a dictatorship that is not interfering all around the Middle East, even if it restores water to its own people and its economy, the world will be a better place.
That's true, but it won't necessarily be better for the people who live there who don't seem to want another regime. They don't want regime replacement. They don't really seem to want that. They seem to want to get their freedom back, which they used to have in this country, and that's why they are protesting the way that they are. They know that things here used to be different. They didn't used to have hyperinflation. They didn't used to have no water.
The Trump administration sending 40 Iranians on an ICE deportation flight home this past Sunday.
Oh, interesting.
The American Immigration Council says this is the third such flight since September. Now, the USS Lincoln Carrier Strike Group entering Central Command waters in the Indian Ocean as President Trump maintains Iran wants to make a deal. Now, the commander-in-chief telling Axios in a brand new interview, quote, we've got a big armada next to Iran, bigger than Venezuela. They want to make a deal. I know so. They called on numerous occasions. They want to talk. Now, the president reportedly coming close to ordering a strike on Iranian targets earlier this month. Some advisors reportedly, though, cautioned him at any attempt at a regime change, saying that can be a risky proposition. I want to bring in Fox News senior strategic analyst and Institute for the Study of War chairman, General Jack Keane. General, the situation with Iran seems to be coming to a head. How do you assess things right now?
Yeah, well, certainly I agree with that assessment. We've been waiting some days now to get these additional assets into the region, mostly maritime assets, to carry a strike group and the assorted ships that come with it. They have air defense systems, certainly, that can help with any retaliation attack by Iran to protect our bases and also to protect Israel.
Knock down missiles.
And then they also have, obviously, aircraft, but we moved a lot of aircraft into the region to various air bases, as well as air defense assets, but they also have offensive cruise missiles that can be used as well. I think what this is really about is, one, is holding the regime accountable, and also the tens of thousands that have been in prison, and the president said he would do just that. And I think it's also about trying to cut off the head of the snake here. In other words, the regime is the snake, and we're trying to get the leaders out of there so some kind of transition can take place. A military strike in of itself won't do that unless you put boots on the ground here, and no one's thinking about doing that. But
the right way for a strike to happen here is for something to happen which supports the actions of the Iranian people. This is their country. They're the ones that are trying to save it right now. You can't just show up and replace a regime with your own troops. That's not going to work. That's not going to be the same thing. That doesn't empower the people that are there. And the people are already on the streets. They're already storming their capital. They're already out there every single day, even with no internet. Those are the boots on the ground. This is their country. It belongs to them. And I happen to think that these troops that are in this regime, these military assets that Iran has throughout the country, what are the rank and file of their army gonna think when they've got friends and relatives who are out there protesting, trying to save their country? What are they gonna think if the Ayatollahs are in hiding, if they disappear, if something happens to them, if the supreme leader runs away? What are they supposed to think? Whose side do they want to be on if their leadership hightails it out of there and stops paying them?
It totally helps to put them on the path to doing that. And listen, just the threat of this happening has to be weakening the resolve of the leaders around the Ayatollah.
Right.
I mean, Iran, Cheryl, is at the worst situation it's ever been since they came into power in 1980. And it's they
their
are
fault.
Weak politically, economically, and militarily, and really on the cusp.
A lot of people will say that, oh, it's the United States' fault. All the enemies of America that love to say that the United States is out there with these sanctions, and that's why things are so bad in Iran. And no, it's not the evil leaders of that place that make it bad. No, it's the sanctions. Listen, the sanctions are on the leaders who support groups that want to harm others, who support groups like Hezbollah that was operating in Venezuela. We can't let these countries fund hatred and evil throughout the world. They need to be sanctioned, and that is not the fault of the people. It's the fault of these leaders who won't go away and won't stop doing these things they're doing.
Not being even able to recover any of this because of the economic situation in such poor shape militarily. You can imagine the pressure that the leaders feel.
Oh, yeah.
Much as the leaders around Maduro were feeling, is this worth sticking with this leader? If our fate is what it appears to be.
They can turn them in.
Our fate is a very dangerous situation in terms of the other leaders surviving.
Well, there
so
was
there's a lot of pressure
defection
on the regime.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir, but there was a defection in Davos by an Iranian official.
There was.
And then what we're seeing now is that there seems to be some reporting out there that, to your point.
Is that true? Wow, this happened. Iran Interior Ministry official defects, calls for U.S. action against regime. And he says people are waiting for Trump. If he does nothing, widespread hatred for him will emerge among Iranians. Wow. And this happened at Davos. So the regime's already fallen apart. There are people in the inner circle who want to save themselves before the whole place collapses.
I agree with you that, look, the Ayatollah is back in a bunker. again. And the way to do this is to target the Iranian, the RIGC, but then also to find those allies, if you will, those underneath the Ayatollah that are willing to work with the United States. And I agree with you about no boots on the ground. That seems to be, the concern from this side.
I don't think we're going to see that
of the Atlantic. Do you think that that's possible?
It didn't happen in Venezuela.
Well, we don't know, but I just know that the pressure is significant, and certainly the threat of an attack, and people know when President Trump says he's going to do something, he does it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, one, the attack itself, executed, could put them on a pathway to a change, and two, if it's something else can occur as a result of the pressure that's on them, that certainly would be a welcome event anyway. We're trying to get rid of the head of the snake here and eventually try to work with a new government that would likely, what we're seeing in Venezuela, be a transition government, somebody you can actually talk to. I don't think you can talk to the Ayatollah and the hardliners around him.
That's precisely why the president isn't taking their phone calls. We know what the plan of these Ayatollahs is. In just a couple of months, America's going to have these midterm elections. What if the government here changes and something happens? They've got some sympathetic members of Congress, some of our regime sympathizers. You know who they are. I know who they are. What if those people take back power? What if they do things to hamper the president's ability to fight for the freedom of the entire world, which is going to help America big time? America's not safer when a country that chants that wants to destroy America is out there somewhere trying to do just that, as they were in Venezuela. This is bad news. Russia, Ukraine, and American officials this week in Abu Dhabi. They hope they can survive. They think that if there's a new president in 3.5 years in the White House, that they got nothing to worry about. They hope that there is. They were wishing the last election went the way that it didn't go.
Stuck in what they're trying to achieve. They're not changing anything. Recovering the ballistic missile program. They want to recover their nuclear program. They want to continue to arm their proxies. They want to go on as if nothing happened in the last 2 years, which is a complete absurdity for the Iranian people. And certainly they are really the victims here. We have to keep focused on what is best for the Iranian people.
Right.
Well,
it's their country,
does
man.
That change
it's
come
been stolen
from them?
But here's the big question everyone's asking. Listen to this.
What should he demand of the Iranians to not get attacked?
Well, I think he's already drawn the red line back when the protests against the regime were still going on, and the regime didn't stop own people. So I think even though it's been quiet for several weeks, there's still an important point to be made here by attacking Revolutionary Guard or besieging militia targets. But I think the president also needs to think long term. One strike isn't going to bring the regime down. If he is committed to regime change, as he has now said, you need to think in a more programmatic, strategic way.
By programmatic strategic, you seem to mean what will replace the regime. That's often been the refrain from those who have urged not having any action in Iran, which seems, at least for the time you and I have known each other, totally different than your previous thoughts.
Well, I think programmatic in the sense, since one strike won't bring the regime down, you have to think of what multiple strikes might do to degrade the regime's ability to cause problems in the nuclear field and the terrorism field, but also to reduce its power to repress its own people. It is the case the regime is not well organized.
That's exactly it.
On the other hand, it's very hard to think of anything worse that could replace the present regime.
Right. And that's the big thing here. The idea of multiple strikes, which is kind of what we saw in Venezuela. There was a rapid operation which commenced after a bunch of military installations were taken out, after their radar was blacked out, after the whole regime over there was completely blind. So if a whole bunch of things happen at once all across the country, the regime's ability to retaliate against its own people, United States military assets, or even our allies in the region, diminishes greatly because they won't have anything to do that retaliation with. They'll lose all of their power, and you've got the common people there on the streets who are ready to reclaim their land after 50 years. But what do you think's going to happen? Do you think this is going to be something like Venezuela? Do you think this is going to be something like Iraq? Do you think the leaders are just going to leave their bunker and go and escape somewhere? I'll see you in the next video.